Hello, my name is Stephanie Wagner. I'm the flutist of the remix ensemble Casa, Música in Porto, Portugal. And today I have the privilege of speaking with wonderful composer Philippe Manoury, who is composer in residency in Casa, Música in Porto, Portugal 2020. Thank you, Philippe, for giving us your time to speak with us, and welcome to this little conversation.
Thank you very much.
Philippe, we were supposed to meet in person. You were supposed to come to our concerts this week. Unfortunately, the coronavirus put a stop to that. So it's really a wonderful sign from you to join the remix ensemble in this by helping us doing a little introduction or a little conversation about your two pieces that we are playing this week. Now, just to go back a little bit in time, the remix ensemble started this year with your residency with your piece Fragment pour un portrait in January. And this week we are playing two other pieces with soloists. We are playing the B partita, which is written in 2016. It's a piece for violin, live electronics and ensemble, based on an older partita, also for violin. And we're playing Passacaille pour Tokyo, which is a piece for solo piano and ensemble. Now, as we can first of all, the first important thing I would say is there are 20 years in difference between these two pieces. Of course, that's a very interesting idea already, that we, in a way, pick 2 points in your life and compare them. But the first thing I would like to ask you, what springs to mind immediately are these two references to historic forms, which is the Passacaille and the partita. Now, is this intentional? I'm sure it must be, but is the audience going to hear this? And what is your relation with the past? There seems to be a strong factor there. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the music of the past is always present in my mind because I spend a lot of time in analyzing scores, classical, romantic, or old music. And I like this sentence by Faulkner. He said, "The past is not even past." That means the past continues to live in our life. I don't want, in fact, to write a music which sounds like music of the past, but I want to continue the spirit of the music of the past. That means this spirit and this so-called tradition is something in which the writing of music is very important for me, and the technical of the counterpoint of the harmony, even if it is not tonal music, but I feel myself as I have a duty, in fact, with music of the past. I feel myself as a continuator of this very old tradition. And what is important for me is to think that this tradition of writing music in Occidental tradition, I mean, of course, it was always to change the things. That means the composer never stopped to change the condition of the expression. For example, of course, Mozart was not composing like Bach, and Beethoven was not composing like Mozart. And they always change something. And this story is not finished. So this story continues until now, when we are facing with new things like technology, like computers, and like things which change radically from time to time our views. But in the term of the Passacaille or the partita, it's always connected with the past. Yes, of course. Always.
Okay, wonderful. Well, as a performer now, I would say there are the two pieces are very different from each other. Even though, of course, looking at the scores, I can maybe recognize already a little bit of your writing. But how do the two pieces now, if you're speaking about these two pieces, how do they relate to each other? I mean, they're both pieces with a soloist and an ensemble. And of course, this violin piece has the live electronics. The piano doesn't have that. But how do they relate? How did you, in a way, 20 years later, see write a different piece with a soloist? How was that? How was that process?
Yes. And the first piece, Passacaille, in fact, was commissioned by a festival in Tokyo, And my idea was, in fact, to have a sort of a piano, but which is not really a concerto, because in the concerto, we generally have a sort of opposition between the piano and the orchestra, and some conflict and some question and answers. And in that case, in fact, the ensemble is a sort of prolongation of the piano, because the piano plays something very virtuoso, very difficult, and very difficult to play, technically speaking. But some of notes from the piano are taken by the instrument. And the instrument, the orchestra is like a big mirror, which will reflect many events which are produced by the piano. Like a sort of multiple echoes from the piano. And I had this idea, and maybe we speak more in details later. But for partita, it does the piece is based on a solo violin piece first, solo violin with electronics, which are a series of pieces. The partita 1 is written for viola, and partita 2 is written from violin. And maybe I will write partita 3 for double bass and for cello. And it is not a partita like in Bach music with a succession of dances, but it is a succession of sections, which are written, in fact, in terms of to also to show the virtuosity. It's very connected with the instrument. Very connected with the instrument, and the two pieces, Passacaille and partita, for me are even if they are very far, as you say, it's 20 years in between, but I feel a lot of connection in between, because I want to try to work very detailed in the articulation, in the way where the performers play the soloist part, which is quite demanding, quite virtuosic, and I attach a lot of importance for the articulation in the both pieces, and very detailed and very precise.
Exactly.
Very detailed and very precise. Yeah.
Yes, we recognize that definitely also in the ensemble writing.
Yeah.
If I can just.
It's not a music of textures, if you want.
Yes.
It's not a textural music. It's more music with different level of articulation.
Yes, yes. Now I will cling on to the B partita then. It's B partita, and the B is unlike maybe you might think with B partita, not a reference to Bach, but yes, to Pierre Boulez.
Yes, of course.
And obviously you were very influenced by Pierre Boulez. Can you tell us a little bit about how you remember him, how he influenced you?
Yes, I was influenced by him when I was very young. When I was 18, 19, I was very strongly influenced by him. And after the years, I wasn't even detached from this influence, but I finally knew him very well, because I worked intensively in IRCAM, and when IRCAM was in the beginning, and we met a lot of time together in the studio in IRCAM, and he has conducted a lot of pieces of mine in Chicago, in Cleveland, in New York, in Paris. So we had a strong connection together. And I am living in Strasbourg, which is not far from where he was living in Baden-Baden. And I visited a lot of time when he was very old, and he was quite blind at the end of his life. So we have a strong friendship since over more than 30 years, in fact. And when I have composed that piece, B partita, I decided to take partita, which is solo violin and electronics. And suddenly I heard that Boulez passed away. So I decided to dedicate that piece in memory of him. And I have introduced at the end of the piece the B, which in German notation is a B flat.
B flat, yes.
And there is this note, which is a sort of point of reference, which appears at the end of this piece, which is not in partita.
In the original partita, yes.
Is some additional elements.
Yes.
And it is like a sort of remembering of him with this bee, which is, of course, connected with him. Yes.
Okay, and now just quickly about the live electronics which you use in the B partita. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that works? What the violin does? It triggers the electronics, correct?
Yes. So that is one of my specialty. In fact, is also thanks to Boulez. In fact, because he wanted to have this kind of electronics, which is not something recorded, but something which is produced in real time. And I work in this field since at the end of the middle 80s, yes. And the idea is the music which comes from the loudspeaker, the electronic music, is not recorded. The music is produced when we listen to. Okay. In real time. That means for this music to happen, the music frequently need information for the performers. For example, in B partita, the violinist, for example, plays some pizzicato, and he will change a tempo in the electronic music. And the conductor will now adapt his direction with a new tempo, which is analyzed for the computer from the violinist. So it's always some ping pong. That means the violin give information to the computer, which will produce a sort of musical texture, which will influence the conductor, which will influence the orchestra.
It's a dialogue all around.
Yes. Well, it's more a dialogue. It's many people. Yes. But the live electronic is interesting because it's allow us, in fact, to have a music which could be changed in the last moment in real time. Yes. It is not fixed forever. And of course, there is at the end of the piece the performers. That means Ashot when he play wonderfully. In fact, at the end there's a sound which is running on the whole, and we play some pizzicati. He changed the disposition of the sound in the whole. He's like a magician, so he has the balls, and he can make some
wonderful
magic, and he can decide where the sound will come. Yes. I like this. I like this conception because it's in fact to have the electronic music not like something very rigorous, and it is rigorous, but not something very strict. But there is the human is very important.
It's very important.
The interpretation will have an influence of the quality of the music.
Which means every performance is really different.
Oh yes.
It's unique.
I mean, the music is the same, of course, but if we look at the details, every performance is different.
So unlike maybe the idea of many listeners that electronic music is always the same, it actually isn't. It actually is very, very flexible, and the performer can very much influence it.
But in the same idea.
Yes, exactly. But still, I mean,
it's like two Beethoven sonata sounds never.
The notes are the same, but the performances are different. Absolutely.
But the sound is different.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
It was not the case with electronic music, and in my music, I want to have this kind of interaction and interpretation.
So you haven't given up on the humans, and that's great. Because as a performer, of course, my question would always be. Because I also have, in the flute part, many ostinati or repetitive notes with accents, and which seem very much like a computer. And then my question would always be: do I play it as a computer? Meaning, do I try to be very exact, or is it okay? Do I go for the spirit of it, and which means that I'm taking risks, and a note might crack, or one accent might be stronger than the next.
I think the both, because from time to time you have to play like
very exact.
Because for a simple reason, from time to time I like when the listener doesn't understand if the sound is come from the instrument or from the loudspeaker.
Exactly.
In order is some ambiguity. But of course, you as a performer or every performers can do some expressions with the instrument of virtuosity, which is not possible to the computer.
For
Each
the computer
one has its own possibilities,
yes.
but I want to have some cross.
Of course.
To in between the performers and computers.
Very good. Okay. So, and moving on to the Pasakai then, pour Tokyo. Obviously, it seems to be a very virtuosic, extremely difficult piece.
Extremely difficult.
Extremely difficult piece for the solo pianist, that is.
Yeah.
We have a continuous repetition of the note E flat.
Yes.
And which gives it a sort of a thread throughout the whole piece with all the jumping around that, which of course creates quite a tension between this continuous ostinato and then these. I'm assuming that's your intention. That's how you create this atmosphere and this.
Yes, this note is present from the beginning to the end. Yes, it is a sort of central point. It is also like a mirror because in that piece, in fact, the partita is generally in classical music or baroque music is a repetition of a bass line, but the structure is the same, repeated, but all over the structure is different. And to me, it's this note, which is the first note, but there are the other notes, which are principally totally symmetric. That means if we have one note in the high register, they are the symmetry in the low register.
Okay.
And it's always like that. And after that, all this point of symmetry becomes a new symmetry.
Okay.
And the same structure is inside the structure. It's like the Russian Muppet. We have a big one and it's the same.
It's smaller and smaller.
It's the same in different. So it is this idea of repetition of the same structures, but the structure is always in every part of the piece, and is a sort of music which is much more complex over the time. In the beginning, it's quite clear, but at the end, it's going everywhere. It's like a tree. You have a tree and you have a branch, and from a branch to another branch, another.
Yes.
There's a sort of proliferation. And in other part of the piece, for example, the middle of the piece, there is also the idea of a tree, but it is a tree. If you see, for example, a tree in the summer, it's plenty of flowers and plenty of leaves. Mm-hmm. And during the autumn, the leaves are leaving, and you can see the structure of the tree.
Yes.
And so in that piece, the motif of the Pasakai is hidden in between different kind of motifs, mm-hmm. and over the time, those motifs leave they are suppressed, and after that we discover, in fact, the structure, the main structure.
We understand this, and then it ends up again on the same E flat at the very end.
Yes,
exactly.
Always. Yeah.
So that's what I find quite remarkable, is that we hear this E flat all the time, and even in the most complicated chords, we can still pick it up. And then at the very end, it ends up again on the same the same E flat. Now, of course, this piece doesn't have so the E flat. I'm sorry. Now I just need to remember the question that a colleague gave me. So the E flat is really just because it is in the middle of the piano. Is that the reason for the E flat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So there is no reference to any other composer.
No, not like a Boulez. No,
like Stravinsky or not really. Okay. So this piece does not have electronics, but yet I find, and again as a performer, that with this offstage piano, you create some texture, some atmosphere, which the other solo piano plays into, which almost sounds like electronics.
Maybe. But it sounds like electronic because we cannot see.
We cannot see it, exactly.
It's like electronic. We don't understand how the sound are produced.
Exactly.
It's funny because it's all the remembering of my youth when I was student. When I was 15 or 16, I was pianist. and I play piano in Paris to accompany some dance, to make exercise, you know.
Yes, yes.
And it was in Salle Pleyel in Paris, and I have some session. I was paid for that to play some valse or lento, adagio for dancers. And the pianist, which was just before me, when I arrived, I listened to the piano, but the hall was so big and so reverberated. So it was impossible to understand what he was playing.
Yes.
I just listened to a sort of shadow. I can say, oh, he's playing the high register or low register, but it was blurred. And I get this idea to have a sort of music as a shadow. And in that piece, the piano solo pianist plays something very articulate, very detailed, very complex, very virtuoso. And from time to time, there is a shadow hidden in the backstage, which plays a simple form. He plays what plays the soloist, but in a simple way. For example, if the soloist play a sort of arpeggio detailed from low to high, the piano in the backstage will play just a glissando.
Okay.
You know, it's a sort of simplification. And my idea was to create a shadow, but after one moment, the shadow takes its independency. That means the shadow is detached from the persona.
Yes.
And it's like you can imagine a sort of a movie in which somebody has a shadow, and the shadow from the moment detached from the character.
Yes.
And I wanted to create a sort of dramatic or theatrical.
Sounds spooky, yes.
Theater music ideas in which the shadow is no more a shadow, but it's becoming a true person. And to create this kind of drama, if you want.
Yeah, no, it's true. But the rest of the ensemble, you already mentioned this before, the rest of the ensemble is really there to I mean, I noticed that very much. Often I am picking up pitches from Nicholas Hodges and have to sustain them, or I have to do a different phrase. So we are really an extension of the piano. We are the piano triggers that. Can you say that the piano triggers the piano triggers the ensemble in a way?
In a way, we can say that, but it is not just that. But in fact, all the elements of the ensemble take their departure from the piano.
From the piano,
but
exactly.
After that, it's just the point of departure, and after that, some figures could develop from the ensemble.
Exactly.
But we can see all the ensemble part. They took their origin from the piano part.
From the piano.
Yeah.
Which makes it extremely difficult, but also a real challenge. It's like a crossword. It just has to add up. You know, if there's something wrong, you hear it immediately.
Because if the pianist has to play a G, and if you have to play the same G, if the pianist play a G sharp.
If I play a G sharp, the pianist will give me a nasty look. No, it's wonderful. It's a real challenge. It's very good. Yeah. So these are the questions I had for you regarding your two pieces that we're playing this week. Now I have a question as a flutist, because we have one historic flute player who's Larry Beauregard, a Canadian flutist, who was the first flutist of the Ensemble Intercontemporain. And we don't know very much about him. And he's always been someone who's, or at least for the last few years, he's really intrigued me. I've been trying to look him up. And I saw that you worked with him at IRCAM. And I mean, he's certainly someone, he's one of those people who died very young, died at 29, very suddenly. But yet in his short life, he was able to inspire many great composers, or several great composers, to write extremely impressive pieces like the Mémorial, Pierre Boulez. And also you dedicated a piece to him. Yes. And this is Jupiter.
Yes.
And which was then premiered by Pierre-André Valade.
Yes, because Larry Beauregard
had already died. So I was just wondering, again, this is a very selfish question, but if you could tell us a little bit about him, about Larry, how he Yes, what he was about.
He was a young Canadian flautist and a very, very good flautist. He was a member of the ensemble. But he has some particular things in his personality because he was born and studied in Canada and maybe in the US, I don't know. He had quite a strong knowledge in electronic, in this kind of electronic, which was in the beginning, because the real time was it was the birth of the electronics in the 80s. And it was very interesting for us, I mean, for Boulez and for myself, because we wanted, in fact, to connect the instruments with electronics, as I explained to you before, with the real time. And Larry he had many ideas how to do it. And he has also the language, in fact, to work with the scientific, because he has a sort of knowledge. He has a sort of, he was not a scientific, but he has some scientific knowledge, higher than many musicians.
Yes.
And he has these two personality, which was very, very interesting for us, because he could connect the world of instrumentalists and the world of technicians and computer. And it was exactly what we needed in that period. And when I have composed this piece, Jupiter, with Miller Puckett, which was a fantastic researcher in that time until now. And of course, I wanted to write this piece for him, because he showed me the connection between the fingerings and the computer, and how the computer could recognize what he was saying. And for me, I remember it was very interesting to see that. And I say, okay, I will write a piece for flute for him. And unfortunately, he died from a cancer very young before. So Pierre-André Valade, which now is a conductor, but at that time he was a flautist, he took, in fact, this project, and he premiered the piece. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Yes. Good. Well, dear Philippe, thank you very much for this short conversation and for sharing your personal ideas about the pieces, and now about Larry also. It's always very useful to us and to the public also.
Yes, and also I want to congratulate you and all the performers, because I follow on the internet the concert, and I won the concert last year, and I have a great admiration of you and as an ensemble and the cohesion, and also the people of the Casa da Música, which was very important for me and very great experience.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to the colleagues. Thank you very much.
Okay, please.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon again here in Porto.
Yes.
And that we can work together, and that we can meet in person and talk in person about the next few pieces that we will play. Thank you very much, Philippe.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.